So today we're going to talk about how to leverage some automations, very specifically the automations that already come inside of FollowUp Boss and some of the Zapier integrations that we can have, and just a lot of ways to just take your business and figure out how to create some leverage in it. We all know that we're getting more and more and more leads every day, and we're also doing less and less follow-up with them. So hopefully we're going to share with that how we do that. And look at that picture of Barry Jenkins. On that note, I'm not sure there's a better opportunity for me to do right now than to pass it over to Barry. So
they told me to make a surprised face, so I did.
That's awesome.
But I'd had to do a sassy one in front of a bear in a fireplace. It wouldn't fit landscape in this, but maybe for the next one.
Perfect. Nothing a little Photoshop can't fix.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So did you guys, I know we talked about a little bit of structure. Go ahead, Ricardo.
I'll sort of just, I guess, kind of kick us off, but couple of housekeeping items. Yes, it's being recorded. We've successfully managed to do that. We'll send you a copy once we wrap up. If any of this seems overwhelming, don't worry. You'll have myself, we have our success community, everyone else. We'll be able to kind of follow up with you, book a hands-on one-on-one if you have questions. If you do have any questions, use that Facebook group or the chat box provided in your Zoom panel, and we'll get to them as we go through. But here's kind of to give us a lay of the land for the next 30 or so minutes. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover how to smart automation creates long-term value for you and your real estate business. We're going to talk about how and what sort of relevant drip content we should be sending, because sending the right message at the right time to the right prospect is the number one way to close more deals. And then specifically how to leverage Zapier and FollowUp Boss and all the workflows that Barry has managed to kind of crack to create more time and leverage in his business. Does that sound about good?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Let's talk about that. What's our next slide?
That's awesome. I think the thing that, sticks out for a lot of people and for a lot of folks, as you guys registered for the webinar, I asked you, what's your single biggest challenge right now when it comes to setting up automations in your business or setting up workflows? And a lot of the responses are, I don't know where to get started. All of this seems overwhelming, et cetera, et cetera. And right now I'm willing to bet for a lot of people, you're pouring a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears into generating leads organically in your business, but you're also throwing money and investing to generate leads from a lot of different sources in your business. So I look at Zapier as our connectivity tool. It's the thing that strings a lot of these systems and workflows together. So I say, let's talk about that. And Barry, how did you, let's talk about how you sort of started to leverage your tech stack and connect all your tools to create more time.
Yeah. It's really unscientific. And so I'm going to give you guys my secrets to how I decided what to automate and when. It's super complicated. Okay. You ready?
Bring it.
If it was annoying, I automated it. If I screwed up, I automated it. That's it.
Barry, let's talk about what that means. So if it was annoying, so give us a couple examples of things that were annoying that you've said, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. It's frustrating. It irritates me. Give us an example of that so that we can give people an idea where they go with something like that.
All right. So you get a buyer and a seller under contract in escrow, depending on if you're cool or not. The rest of us say ratified contract, but there's a lot of people you got to tell. And then there's a lot of things compliance wise. And I'm a salesperson. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm having fun. And I would just have to stop and think who, when, what, did I do this? And it's just and at that time in my business, I didn't have the clarity of thought to write it out or have a template of any kind. And I would just carry the list in my mind, which is a horrible thing to do. You're just using all your hard drive and your processor is just, running. It's like having 50 Chrome tabs open. And when I could come up with a way that I could do an information dump all at once and have everybody know everything that they need to know. And so, in 2016, that started my Jotform to, I don't know if Deals was around then in FollowUp Boss, but
No,
it
it wasn't.
eventually worked its way into Deals. And basically, when my agents ratify a contract, they go to this Jotform, and all of the things they should be thinking about, they're just answering the questions. And then when they hit submit, that data goes to all the many places that it has to. And so that was an example of something that was annoying. I would remember at 2 a.m. Oh man, I forgot to schedule the inspection. That's annoying, right? Like I did a good job and now I've got to I've the stress of, okay, what do I do? And then I wouldn't fall back asleep. So anything that is annoying, anything that I made a mistake on, there's a lot of deadlines in a real estate contract. There's a lot of leads. We spend all this money, we get all excited about all these systems and processes, and FollowUp Boss is showing me who's active and all this stuff. And then I miss it because either I'm distracted or it's confusing. And I don't find out until 3, 4, 5 months later that I had all these hot leads that I didn't capitalize on and they bought with somebody else. And so figuring out, what do I do? How do I fix that? And, I think we as agents, our frame of reference is not what's broken or what's burdening me. Let me fix it. It's, hey, I heard Barry did this, so I'm going to. And so, it is a mistake to view what someone else is doing and just try to say, well, that's what I'll do without any context. So really focus on where are your blockers, and what you'll find is the stuff I did in 2016, 2017, on and on and on. I'm still reaping the dividends from those investments of time. And I actually don't enjoy setting this stuff up. I don't. I just don't like doing annoying things or
over and
working
over
hard.
and over again.
Yeah. So
I love it. And I think, so for those of you who are thinking about that, what kind of things are we talking about? So the first thing is, and I don't know if you're doing it this way or not, Barry, but most of the stuff I do simply by adding a tag in FollowUp Boss. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's a one way to do it. Yeah. I mean, and that's a great way to do it. It's probably one of the most straightforward ways to do it. There's a lot of other ways too.
Absolutely.
You're talking about triggers, right? Like what?
Absolutely.
What is going to set this off? So stage changes is another one, right? Like when my agent changes the stage to cold, I want something cool to happen. Right.
Okay. So what happens when an agent on your team changes the stage to cold?
Well, I know that they're probably not going to remember to call them regularly. And so I'm going to have an automated campaign of some kind be created to start maybe 5, 6 months later with some tasks, an action plan. I know that my agents, when they convert a lead and they change the stage to hot, they change the stage to hot because it shuts everything off. I've only asked my agents to focus on stages. That's it. I'm like, look, I'll do lots of things. You just focus on the stage. And they know that the different stages are telling me and the computer what to do based on that. So the adoption of stages is really important and it's grown. But when my agents change the stage to hot, I don't give them an opportunity to let our preferred lender know that they got a hot lead. So, the lender is added as a collaborator. An email goes out. And this is risky, by the way, what I admit, but it's an apologetic email from the assigned agent. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going a million miles an hour. I can't remember if I shared the detailed information of how to contact our lender. Here it is. My lender really, really likes it. And the more he likes it, the more money he spends and the more leads I buy. And that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah. And is that a FollowUp Boss automation that you're using to do that?
Yeah. Yep.
So for all of you who, I don't know, maybe we should talk just for a second about the triggers that you can do. So Barry's already talked about when he changes a stage. So if I change a stage in FollowUp Boss, one of the things that can happen is I can create an automation, correct?
That's right.
So so I'm assuming, for those of you who are watching, and I'll just read off what the triggers are. For those of you who don't know them, you can just go back into the admin and then you just go to automations. That's where you find that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 triggers. And those 7 triggers are a stage change, which with Barry talked about. They're a tag, which I talked about. I do a lot of stuff with tags. Deal, stage change, new inquiry, property saved, property viewed, calendar date. So if any of those things happen, then we can do other things. And that basically that's what Barry's talking about. So what are some of those things that we can do? So if I change a stage, then I can actually do another action, and any of those actions I can reassign a lead. Hopefully we don't have to do that. We can add notes, or we can create another action plan. And I know sometimes as I first got into this, and I don't know if you had this experience, Barry, but it felt like I kept trying to chain things together. So I love what Barry said at the beginning of this: map this out. And here's what I'm saying. So when somebody changes stage, what are the things that I want to happen? So then you can just simply map that out, and then you can go in and create data around it. A lot of us don't like to do this mapping out on a piece of paper. We were making a joke at the beginning of this that we were going to have a class on how to use a notebook and a calendar. Maybe we should have that class, but it's a good place to start is on a piece of paper to map it out so you know where you want to go. So I don't know if that's how you create stuff, Barry, but I have to, because I can't make it all work in my head without seeing it on a piece of paper and kind of drawn out.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking for one that I just did. I'm a very visual person, and I would say that most of our culture is just the way that we were. So I really just want to show off that I have a remarkable, but this is me just basically doing a wireframe of what I think should happen. And it does 2 things. I've got to be able to teach my salespeople what we're doing and why we're doing it. But I think we as team owners, we look at this and we're like, yeah, I need to do a flow chart. But I didn't do flow charts in 2016. Okay. Like I should have, but
makes it easier.
Yeah, I was still selling houses, right? And that matters. If you're still selling houses, you're still in production, you've got to be more, what can I do to free up some of my time? And what we need to recognize is the more you do this, you're effectively raising your hourly rate, because you're putting tasks that you no longer need to do off your plate. And that's why, look, I love Zapier, but the automation feature inside of FollowUp Boss, it multiplied my ability with Zapier by like 10-fold, because now I can do things like, if someone views a home or saves a home while they're in my storage pond means it's like they're just there, we're marketing to them, but my agents aren't bothered with it. If someone views a home or saves a home or triggers a Ylopo priority alert, I want to create the action plan of move to priority pond. And the priority pond action plan takes the lead out of the storage pond, adds a note, and it tags, the note allows me to notify everybody on the team, hey, this one just went from the storage pond to the priority pond. First one to talk to him gets it. And then, it creates this frenzy. But I wasn't able to do that with Zapier because I wasn't able to get that granular of what the lead's behavior was. And so, automations inside of FollowUp Boss plus Zapier is a really dynamic duo that will get your inner nerd doing cartwheels. But if you don't start with what do I need to fix, you're just going to have like lots of stuff, and life's complicated enough,
Yeah. And I'm going to share my screen for just a second and show people exactly what Barry's talking about and how simple this is to do. So I think a lot of people people are scared by the word automation and a lot of it. So I want to show you guys, and this is just simple. I'm going to take what Barry just said. He said, when I get someone who viewed a problem, I'm going to actually go one step back. So I'm going to add a new automation here. And Barry just said, hey, somebody viewed a property. So I'm going to create this. This is an automation I'm creating real time right here. And the action would be, I want to reassign this. I don't have ponds similar to Barry. So I'm just going to pick a pond. I'm going to say that we're going to assign it to this pond. So literally next time, and I'm not going to turn this automation on because it doesn't make sense in my business the way I have it set up. But I want you to know the next time somebody views a property on my website, they will get reassigned to this pond. That's literally how simple that is. Now, I'm not going to save this automation. I'm not going to turn it on, but that's how simple it is to create automations in FollowUp Boss, and you could do that one, or you could say, you know what, I don't want to do, have somebody assigned to a pond. I want to add an automation. When somebody views a property, I'm going to just create an action plan. And then we can they start doing a certain action plan. That could be a drip. That could be a notification to the agent to call them. There's all these different things. You can add a tag. All of these things can be done very simply. And what things can I do? You know how I can figure it out? I go to action plans. All of these things I can do in an action plan. I can create a tag. I can send an email. I can change a stage. I can add a note. All of these things can be done. So that's why I was saying that, I love what Barry did. It was great that he actually had that piece of paper in front of him. But Barry didn't sit down and do it this way. He sat down with the piece of paper and said, what do I want to, what's the trigger? The trigger is somebody looked at a house. What do I want to happen? And a lot of this, I want to say that since the last probably 6 to 12 months, don't quote me on that, time is a blur during the pandemic, but FollowUp Boss has added automation after automation after automation. We still use Zapier, but I use it about 10% of what I used it a year ago. I don't know if that's where you're at as well, Barry.
I think I agree that the automations have just continued to layer. I can't help it now. Like so it hasn't decreased anything. It's just made it more like, it's just more difficult to talk to people about because it's like I'm speaking a different language sometimes. But I will say that storage pond to priority pond automation came about because a mistake was made. There were, occasionally I'll go in and I'll do some searches and say, did we miss anything? And I saw a theme that my agents were busy and there wasn't enough exposure to all the, we're all excited about dynamic remarketing and all these old leads coming back to our website, but it is also leveled up or required a leveling up of organization, because the days of just kind of being disorganized and haphazard, but good on the phone, like, answering the phone and just kind of working the lead. Those days are, it's more and more difficult to run a profitable business with that type of environment. And so, I began to look through where are the holes in my database? Where am I missing opportunities? And I found several instances where I had all these cool drips and people were responding to them and nobody was getting notified. And so I was like, okay, I got to funnel this. I got to figure out. And so that's how I came up with the storage to priority pond idea. But that doesn't mean that everybody else should copy that. You should just look for where are your missed opportunities, right? And how can I capitalize on it next time without having to pay attention? I do not want to pay attention at all.
So, and I do something similar that I do add a Zap for. So when somebody takes an activity that's in one of my ponds, I drop that into a Slack channel. And then from that Slack channel, everybody on my team has access to that. And what they get is a URL to the lead in the pond. So they go, they click on that Slack channel, and now that lead, they can go in there. Now, sometimes it's done. Sometimes it's like somebody just added a note. Okay, great, no big deal. But a lot of times, this is what I found. I've got a lead that's a curator lead from 5 years ago, and they just became a YLOPO lead 5 minutes ago. Well, they're in my pond. Well, no one's really monitoring that pond. I think is kind of, Barry was having a similar situation. So now they're a YLOPO lead. Now they're ready, because 5 years ago they weren't. They were just bored searching the internet at 2 o'clock in the morning. So one of our agents can click on that, claim that lead, and go, hey, great. This is Brian with Curtis Realty Group, just following up with you. So I made an inquiry on our website, wondering if you're looking to make a move soon or just window shopping. Awesome. And those are the types of things that automations can do for you. And again, sit down and think about it. So we have a couple of questions. The first one was, what's the name of the system that Barry's mentioned the agent can fill out and then it sends it to everybody you know? That was the first thing you talked about.
Oh, that was just Jotform, Jotform. It's just a form software.
Just a
it's not
form
even real
builder.
estate. Yeah, it's like you could use Google Forms.
I was
and
gonna
get
say,
the
yeah.
same thing.
Yeah,
It's just a
absolutely.
form builder.
So yeah, Jotform is a good thing, and we use Google Forms in our business as well. So I hope that answered your question, Sydney. Next question: is there an automation that can be set up to reassign a lead after a certain amount of time has passed that new lead has not been called? That is actually a fun automation. Barry, are you familiar with how to do that, or I'd be happy to talk about it either way.
No, actually, I learned it from what you and Jeff are doing with the tags. So go ahead and share because it was your idea anyway.
So basically what we're doing is we're looking at, you can basically do a search with smart lists and create that. And if for whatever reason that person is not assigned in a certain amount of time, we add tags and subtract tags with action plans. It's kind of a complex concept. So the answer is yes, you can do it, but ultimately a lead comes in and then after a certain action is taken, there's an if then conditional in the automation. It'll either remove the tag or add a tag. And so when certain tags are still on that added to that, the tag will trigger the reassign is the short version of that. Yes, it can be done. And I apologize, that didn't give you the exact workflow, but it's a little bit more complex, but yes, it absolutely can be done. It's add and remove tags and action plans, and then it's reassigned based on certain tags. And you can look at last called, you can run smart lists, last called, last contacted. Gabe did a whole bunch of that stuff that he's doing with his team, last call, last contacted, last text. And you can look at that. And if that has not happened, then yes, you can automatically create a reassign.
So would you do that using tags, like adding and removing tags, or could you also do that using stages? If they don't move it out of a specific stage, you would reassign it.
That's a really great way to do that, Ricardo, too.
And does it
Yeah.
matter?
So you could definitely create an automation that if it's not at a certain stage after, you're going to run those conditions, if not contacted and stage X, then you could remove that as well. Absolutely. Or you could reassign that as well.
And the other thing I do is that I got from Jeff and Brian is in our action plans, we have like day 1, day 5 tags that are added on day 1 and day 5, day 10, day 15, day 20. And for me, I create automations inside of FollowUp Boss that on day 10, for example, if the number of calls is less than 1, then why didn't you call? Note is added, right? Like, so like you're allowed to add these tags into the standard action plans, and they're just audit moments. They're moments where you can say, what do I want to look for? 0 outbound text, 0 outbound calls. Okay, well, that's a problem, right? Do you want to give them a note to nudge them, or do you want to just reassign it to somebody else? There's really, you can do anything.
That's so good.
I would default on nudging to start. And then if the nudging isn't working, then you can kind of come up with a scenario where your agents buy into the fact that, look, like, if you're not trying, can we just give it to somebody else? And when you automate it, FollowUp Boss is the bad guy. You can close your ears, Ricardo, but system's a system, didn't call. So.
Yeah, and let me just kind of show you real quick, and this is not the best way to do this exactly, but I'll just show you real quick, basically what Barry's talking about, a simplified version of that. So ultimately, we can add a tag. I just picked a random tag to do this, by the way. And then I can say, okay, here's the condition. Last call was more than 5 days ago. So I've got a new lead. Literally a lead comes into my system. I can add a tag day 1. Like with an action plan, it automatically gets a tag added to it. And then I just pick this as a random time event. You can pick whatever you want, but last call was more than 5 days ago. By the way, if it's 0 calls, this will still trigger this. And then if that happens, I'm going to reassign it to a pond. And that's all that is. And I think sometimes we make this really complex. It doesn't have to be that complex. I created that as we were talking about this during the webinar. So That drive with what you're talking about, Barry. Wow, I can't say your name.
Yes,
Blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
Brian. Brian, it absolutely is.
Whew, wow. It's Monday here on this Wednesday. So, but pretty, pretty simple concept. All right, we got another question. Hey Barry, directed
Hi.
for Barry. I have a copy of your lead follow-up plan flow chart. Is it possible to automate this plan and have it assign tasks to remind to call, text the lead on particular red days, or even have text messages automated as well? That was a big question. Why don't you answer the first part? Can you have it remind to call or text on particular days?
I need to read it again. I had trouble. Let's see. Lead follow-up on flowchart. Is it possible to automate this plan and have it assign tasks? So yes, you can do that. But look, if you're not careful, tasks become this place in FollowUp Boss where you get to just be a loser, and you go there and you have like 100 past due tasks. And so you just stop using it. I call it task hell. I don't know what you guys call it, but I've literally emailed FollowUp Boss 4 times over my tenure with FollowUp Boss and said, hey,
You call my tasks.
please just like wipe my entire team's tasks. Just wipe them all. Let's just start from scratch. And so now we only use tasks for unique tasks to between the agent and the client. And they're self-made outside of 3 call tasks that we make for our agent. And the reason why we do that is so that they can organize. They can do all of their morning call tasks on 1 day a week. They can do all their midday lunchtime tasks another day, and then they can do all their evening call tasks. So we actually allow them, we have our ISAs managing the urgency of new and calling right away. And then we allow the agents the ability to plan their schedule. And you might say, you only have 3 call tasks for your agents? Yes. And I bet they call more than yours.
Well, and I'll piggyback on that. So what Barry's talking about, I had the same experience. So I had, I don't know, for my team, thousands and I don't remember what the number was, 7, 8, 10, 20,000 overdue tasks. I don't know what it was. And so for me, once you get about 20 overdue tasks, you might as well have none. And that was kind of the threshold that we figured out. Tasks are fabulous, but I used to have a task that would run action plans. Day 1, it set this task. Day 2, it set this task. And it would, by the time it was day 10, if the agent hadn't done a good job, they had 15 overdue tasks. So I'm also not a fan of overtasking people. I love the concept of what we were talking about a second ago. If you're not going to work the lead, I'm just going to reassign it and let somebody else grab it. And I love what Barry said there too. He said, don't be the bad guy. Blame it on FollowUp Boss. Hey, this is the system. We talked about it when you joined our team, you joined our organization. And matter of fact, I don't even know how to stop it anymore. That might be an exaggeration. But, but my point is, everybody plays by the same set of rules. We're not treating you special. We're not treating you in a good way or a bad way. After X number of days, that lead will get reassigned. What does that do? And that's basically we're inspecting what we expect, right? So it's just a way to do it from an automated standpoint. So I love that where you're coming from. What about automated text messages, Barry? Because I know that you cannot, unfortunately, do that in FollowUp Boss. I think we've all harassed Dan, but he's decided that that's not in his business model, and I respect that because if the rest of FollowUp Boss is so amazing. But what if you want to send automated text messages? I can talk about what I can do, or I'd be happy to listen to what you're doing out there as well.
Well, FollowUp Boss was really ahead of its time with this feature.
Absolutely.
Because for those of you that don't know, the way email providers scrutinize email deliverability and spam, well, it's going to be a whole nother level of that with cell phone providers. Verizon, AT&T, all these mobile providers are holding texting vendors hostage with paperwork and money. And so it's just not going to work anymore, to be honest with you, not like it used to. And the level of creativity it's just gone up a lot. So, and look, I mean, even the iPhone's adapted. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but you can go to select messages in your text now. Let me go to it. There's 3 dots at the top. and then you just hit select messages, and then you can click a read all button. So I don't even read all my text messages anymore. I'm tired of it. And so it's changing. Okay. 5 years ago it worked. It doesn't anymore. And so I would tell you that we've made our lists, smart lists, our workflow, and I've numbered them so that my agents do 1 first and 2 second and 3 third. And then I went to text template, and I created text number 1 and text number 2 and text number 3. So when they're in list 3, they text number 3. I know. It's crazy. And they do this every day. And, we joke, but I want my agents to be creative. I want their gregarious nature to come out, and I want them to be funny. When I'm needing them to examine these lists and decide who they should contact today, I'm not only getting them to use their pragmatic side of their brain, but I'm immediately decreasing their efficiency. And what I found is by removing as many options as possible from their day-to-day, I've watched as the time they spend following up has increased 33%. I mean, they're spending more time, not because I'm making it easier for them. And this is very doable with the FollowUp platform. In fact, I would argue that I have never had a CRM be as adaptable to what my needs are, because there's no right answer. What's right for me today is not what's going to be right for me a year from now. My business adapts, my lead sources adapt, my agents adapt, my market adapts. And so I need my system to, and that's really what I'm, and I'm getting my FollowUp Boss tattoo right here next week.
Excellent. It's going to look just like that, right? Okay. And I'll answer the question slightly different, Cheney. So first of all, let me say I agree 100% with what Barry just said. If you give somebody a simple plan to follow, they can follow it. If they log into FollowUp Boss and go, oh, I've got to send this text today, and it's in a text template, that takes me about 7 seconds. And then I go to the next one. I do it over and over and over again. That's what you're saying in essence, right, Barry? You're telling them exactly what to do on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, whatever it is. That is a fabulous way to do that. And it keeps your agents specifically engaged. The alternative to that would be to add on, and this is one of the things that I personally love about FollowUp Boss. FollowUp Boss has become the hub of my business. And what do I mean by that? Well, I've got call action, I've got agent legend, I've got AM cards, I've got OTC, open to close. All of those things are now integrated inside of FollowUp Boss. And as far as I know, there's no other CRM that has direct integrations that way that I can use all these systems. I don't even have to log into the other system to use it anymore. And I love that. It seems like that one step would be no big deal. Oh, I'm going to start a call action drip. What do I got to do? I got to log into call action. I'm not going to do that. But since it's built into FollowUp Boss, I click, and I'm done. So to answer your question in a different way, you could set a task. And again, we talked about the trials and the tribulations of tasking to start a drip with something like call action or agent legend, or you could have an automation that puts a tag on that. Again, I'm clearly a big tag guy, and that tag can trigger an automation to send out a text message through call action or agent legend as well. So it just depends on how much you want your agents interacting and how much you don't. So for active leads inside of my CRM, I like what Barry said. For people who are sitting in my pond, I like to do more automation. That's my difference. I want agents interacting with the ones that are assigned to them. The ones in the pond, I'm going to over automate and send out text messages and voicemails and things like that. And I use call action personally to do that. Cool. I don't know how much time we have, Ricardo. Where are we at? I don't know if this is supposed to be 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour or
4 hours.
4 hours.
4-hour workshop. No, we're tracking good on time. We'd love to open it up to Q&A. If you guys have questions, keep hitting us in the chat, and we're good.
I think also outside of working backwards from what's annoying and what's broken, I think some other things you can do is, optimizing. So I've gotten to the point now where I'm not so much what's annoying and what's broken. I've really addressed all of that Now it's more focused on how do I optimize my business. And one of the ways I do that is focusing on what's the cheapest way for me to generate opportunities for my agents without taxing my agents. And so then I obsessively look at my database and look at the trends, and I go into reporting inside of FollowUp Boss, and I look at just the detailed alerts. I also have another FollowUp Boss bolt-on product of Octum that is basically it's become my lead manager inside of the FollowUp Boss ecosystem. And somebody just asked, what's my favorite automation? That's a hard question to ask.
They're all my favorite once I launch them.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the one that has had the biggest impact is having all contracts, and when my agents get something under contract, going to a little Squarespace website with a Jotform on it, I'm able to change my systems like people change their socks, and my agents don't know. That Jotform has been the same for 5 years, and I literally change what happens to the data constantly, and nobody knows. And it allows me, I know automatically how much it costs me per lead source to get a closing. And this is because of the data I get the moment they ratify the contract. When my agents win a listing, there's that, oh gosh, I got to order photos, I have a menu, it's a Jotform, and they select what they want. And then based on what they want, it tells specific people on my team what to do. And that's why now I think I'm up to 8 VAs in the Philippines that are just manhandling the data. And the outcome of this is we're closing 15% of our Realtor.com leads. And we're closing 1% of our Ylopo leads. And so at first glance, it's like, hey, I should buy more Realtor.com leads, right? And that's what I used to do. Well,
tell us why, Barry, because I think that's a very important concept you just covered right there.
Yeah, well, and now that I have all this data, I was looking at the cost per closing, and for every $1,000 I spend on Realtor.com, I lose $500 at a 15% closing ratio. And for every $1,000 I spend on Ylopo, I make $4. So my rep thought I was like quitting the business at Realtor.com, because every time there was a renewal, I was like, no. And that's just because the data was leading me to, go where I wanted to go. So I think for me, business insights have been my favorite. And anything that gives you more transparency about your business is a huge win. And I think it should be really brought up a lot more, in my opinion.
I love that. I'm going to answer a question real quick. Somebody asked about Octum. That's AUCTM. It sounds like it starts with an O, but it starts with an A. So
yeah, it's a Latin word that means something. I feel like many of these software companies come up with what's the most difficult way we can name our company and use .io at the end. Like, it doesn't matter. Oh, they did .com. Oh well.
They have. Awesome. Well, and again, we'll spend a couple more minutes covering anything. We'd love to hear more questions. We'd love to just share any of those thoughts with anybody who's got anything. I see we've got about 75 people right now, and I know we have people watching online as well. So if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat or the Q&A. And otherwise, you got to listen to Barry and I pontificate about whatever we decide.
Well, and there could be some listening being like, yeah, that's great. I'm really glad for you that you have it so dialed in that you know how much your cost per closing is, right? So let's talk about some others that I think are really important. Automating your lead follow-up. I think for a lot of agents that are trying to scale, that is, it's important. And so some things that you want to keep in mind is, what did the consumer expect when they registered, wherever they registered from? What did they expect? And does the messaging you're providing and the automated campaigns, does it match? And one of the things that I started to do was, I call it being generally specific. And what I would do is I would bolt on call action and say, all right, when a lead comes in on day 2 in the morning, I want to leave a voicemail that says, hey, morning, I know you were checking out lead source, right? So I knew what lead source they were on, and I knew that I was sending the text in the morning. And I did all my messages in, they're my voicemail, but I'm the client care coordinator. Say, hey, this is client care coordinator. So generally specific. So I whatever's fixed about the messaging, whether it's text or email or voicemail or video, I use it to my advantage. And then I leave my company number, my FollowUp Boss company number, as the callback number. That's because anyone that calls that number that's in my CRM automatically routes to the assigned agent anyway. And another example is when I get a home evaluation lead. I did a video, and it's hilarious. I'm specific. Hey, this is Barry. I saw you just were checking out your home value, and I wanted to see if you wanted me to send you this cool report. It's called HomeBot. And I happen to be on somebody else's digest, so I figured I would just show you. Do you want all these things? Let me know. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, what's an automated video you send? And I send them that one, and they're like, oh no, that's for one person. I'm like, no, go back and listen. It really isn't. Like literally, like all the time, people are like, oh, that's just for one person. And so, but generally specific is good. Recognizing that you need something bringing them back to your search site. There's different companies now that offer dynamic remarketing, but just focusing on new opportunities, I would say, is half the battle. You really need to focus on old opportunities, because I can get an old lead to come back to my website for about $1.50 a person a month. So that's way cheaper than anything else. So
absolutely. A couple more questions. So these pre-recorded automated voicemails per lead source, time and day. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. So I'm going to try and think about changing that a lot. So they are pre-recorded is the answer, yes, but they're not necessarily time specific. Is that accurate? Or do you have ones that go out in the morning, ones that go out in the afternoon?
No, I have some that go out in the morning. Call action allows you that opportunity, but greeting time is a merge field inside of FollowUp Boss that is hugely effective. And it's also a merge field in call action.
Yes.
And so that allows you to say good morning, good evening, and all that stuff. The videos, you just want to reference anything that is always going to be true.
Yes.
And so if you can control the time of day, then say good morning, right? If you can control what type of lead source this is going to, then mention it. The merge fields in FollowUp Boss are the best there are for any CRM outside of just real estate. So some merge fields that we do to create that authentic automation. Last 5 previewed, I slap that at the end of every automated email. I don't even say I found some homes, because I don't know if they're actually looking or not, right? And so let's see. Hold on a second. I'm trying to see if I can find one where. Yeah, so let me show you guys. I'm going to share my screen. This was one I just randomly sent just before I left the office today to come back to do this webinar. And all I sent was the body of the email, or the subject just says, what did you end up deciding? And I sent it to 150 people. 10% of them opened the email. 13 of them, only 3 unique. So they must have sent it to somebody. But I'm getting them. See, are you still looking at moving? let me know. I had a few things to discuss that might help you. And I just slapped the last 5 previewed at the end of I didn't say I found some, it's just there, and they click it and they start searching. And so, these merge fields of website activity and time of day, it works. It really does. Email marketing is a big deal now for me.
Yeah, and I will say using merge fields has really changed our business as well because it makes it feel more authentic. So
It's personalized.
yeah, we use
Personalization.
call action as a bolt on for follow up boss, and I might say, hey, or can I call you in 45 minutes? The merge field is 45 minutes, and it'll come across as 12:30. Or 1:30 or 2:30, whatever time zone you're in right now. So those are cool merge fields that you can use because it makes you feel authentic. Now, I will say this, be careful when you use merge fields with have a specific time on them. You're going to have to say, if they'll come back and say, sure, let's talk at 12:30, and then you don't respond, you look like a moron. So using merge fields is a very powerful thing. A couple of quick questions. I'll answer this one real quick. What company is Barry using in lieu of Realtor.com? Barry's using Ylopo and other ones, but Ylopo is they do Facebook lead generation and pay-per-click lead generation. Great company where Barry and I are both associated with them. So, and then how do you decide which groups to start with when you've got so many holes to plug? Barry, I don't understand the question. Do you understand that question?
I would tell you, depending on what are the ones that are most likely to make you money the fastest, and focus on that and work backwards.
Perfect. Another question, last 5 previewed option and follow-up boss. That's the last 5 that they looked at. Yes. So if you have a website that's associated with your follow-up boss account. So again, Barry and I use Ylopo. So we can just simply they're integrated. Again, that's the beauty of follow-up boss. If any of you are not using follow-up boss, there is a free trial that we'll talk about here in a second, but it plays so well with everything else. So, plays with Sierra, even plays with it plays with all the sites. It just works great. I don't know how to say that. Ylopo, Real Geeks, there's a million of them out there, but it allows that to be the back end of your front end website. So it says, oh yeah, here's the last 5 houses that you looked at on Ylopo, Real Geeks. I don't know, there's tons of them out there. I can't think of off the top of my head, but yes, it actually does all of that, and it'll send the last 5 houses they looked at. Sometimes you look like a genius. They're like, wow, I really like those houses. Like, how did he know? I mean, I hate to think that happens, but I think it literally happens every day. Like, how did Barry know that I was interested in those 5 houses? Well, because of the last 5 you looked at.
Yeah, and you can also do the last address they looked at. So when one of our leads saves a home, if they're in the pond, we set up to where if lead saves home and they're in the pond, so that's the condition. This is an automation and follow-up boss, do priority alert email. And the priority of the alert email just sends the address in the subject line. And it just says, are you still looking in the 123 Smith Street, whatever the address is, merge field area? Let me know. So the house they just saved, I'm asking them if they looked at it in the area. Now, if by chance the address doesn't merge field, because you always got to have a plan B, then that 123 Smith Street wouldn't be there. And so it would say, are you still looking in the area? So you don't look like an idiot. And so but the open rate is like insane on that because that's what they just saved.
Perfect. All right. Somebody asked this question. I'm going to share my screen real quick to answer it. Somebody asked what the 7 triggers were, and the 7 triggers are right here. And how did I get to them? I'm just going to come back. Are you seeing my screen, Barry? Am I showing follow-up?
Yep. Yeah. Can you zoom in a little bit though?
How about that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So if you want to know where those triggers are, you just go to admin, you go to automations, and then you click on add an automation. Here's the 7 triggers right here. Hope that answers your question. All right, Barry, I'll let you answer this. How do you spell Ylopo?
You got to sing it, Barry.
The last 5 letters of Monopoly backwards. So YLOPO.
That's where it came from.
I'm biased. I work there. I still run my real estate team in Virginia Beach, but I don't like it when people don't say how they're affiliated and stuff. So just super biased. Ask somebody else if it's good, because I think it's amazing.
And I'm one of their first 20 clients, so I'm also extremely biased. Been with them since the beginning. So Ylopo, YLOPO. It's not. Wasn't meant for them to be a webinar for them, but they do play very well with FollowUp Boss. So as we get near the end here, it looks like we know another question, but I wanted to remind everybody, if you're not a FollowUp Boss user, we've got a link, and I'll share that in the chat. Once again, it's already in the chat, but I'll share it again. That allows you to get a free 30-day trial of FollowUp Boss. And that's a real trial, by the way. That's not one of those trials that you only get to use 3 of the features and you don't really know. This is 30 days. FollowUp Boss believes in their product. It's a good product, and they know that if you use it for 30 days and you're actively need a CRM, that you won't switch. And I feel that with extreme confidence. Barry and I have both strayed at times to other CRMs, and we're back. We came back home. You know, we're prodigal children, I guess. At some
Well,
point
when I came back, Dan sent me the YouTube video of Homer Simpson going back to Mr. Burns trying to get his job back. So that's what he sent me. So that was
Perfect.
amazing.
That's
Troll
awesome.
level 1 billion.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. Let's see. We got 2 more questions. We're going to answer them, and then we are going to thank everybody for being here today. Okay. I know you can make an automation to add collaborators when the lead stage, but when I do that, it only works if I change it to a lead from something else. So if it's not I don't know what that means. Barry, do you read that?
Let me look again. When I do that, so when they do that automation, it works if I change it to a lead stage from something else, not if it's automatically added as a lead. So the trigger is changing the stage, right? And so if there's no change, then it wouldn't automate it. What I would do is create an automation that says anytime there's a new lead, then add collaborators. Or in the action plan, so not in automations, but in the action plan, you created an action plan that says, for this specific lead source, I want you to use these emails, but I also want you to add these people as collaborators. So instead of using automation for a lead in the lead stage that's new, so it hasn't been changed to lead, it comes in as lead, use the action plan, not automation.
I think that's very smart there, Barry. Okay. Somebody asked, is there a list of automations, or is anyone writing a book or a manual anytime soon? So I'll throw that over to FollowUp Boss. Ricardo, do you guys have a list someplace that we can share with anybody? And if not, I'm sure in between myself, Barry mentioned Jeff Moore, who I work with, does a lot of automation stuff. I don't know that we have an active list.
We don't.
They made a list of mine when it first came out.
And then one final question. I'm sorry that we don't have this, but somebody asked about dynamic remarketing companies. So once again, somehow we got on a Ylopo webinar, but Ylopo is one of those companies. Barry, who else does dynamic retargeting? Do you know?
There's also Ylopo. I'm just kidding. No. Okay. So Commissions Inc. launched dynamic remarketing early 2020. Sierra Interactive launched dynamic remarketing in mid 2020. Boomtown now has a form of it. I think, Chime also has a form of it. We hijacked. It's a retail product. Dynamic remarketing was designed for retailers. You know, here's your shoe catalog, and Facebook is gonna shop the shoe catalog to find shoes that match the person's behavior. And Ylopo hijacked that theory and uploads the MLS every morning. We did that in 2017, so it was part of our innovation. But lots of other products that offer dynamic remarketing now.
So if you're not looking, so Barry mentioned all of those are CRMs that he mentioned. So if you're using a FollowUp Boss, you want to continue to use FollowUp Boss, you might also look at Whitley. You can do some dynamic retargeting for that as well. So that's good.
I don't think it's property based though. I think
It's
it's more like,
It's probably not. So
yeah, it's like, these are all the people that see the ads that are this branding, and these are all the people that see the ads that are, these scenarios. But like shopping for homes and pushing them into the news feed, I think only those companies listed. And Ylopo integrates with all of those, but I don't know why you would integrate with FollowUp Boss.
yeah, it doesn't make sense
That
to
just sounds
follow
like
up Boston Chime. Just sounds like a train wreck, right? So, so yes, so think if you want that, definitely Ylopo does a great job of retargeting. And again, I think you can use Whitley. You can use there's a couple other companies out there. Obviously,
And I'm a big fan of Grant Wise too. He's a good dude.
yeah, and if you want, in 4 minutes, I'm going to interview him on Lab Code Agents. So if you want to see that, so that's what put it in my head. But we appreciate everybody being here today. I'm sure that we could probably sit here and answer questions all day long. Unfortunately, we need to get back to work. So thank you everybody for your time today. We appreciate everybody. And if you want to see a replay of, we'll definitely put a replay up in the group. And we are also, please check out the free trial. If you're not a FollowUp Boss user, you're missing an opportunity to really create an amazing hub for your business, and everything else just springs forth from it. And I know that Barry's using it the same way I am when it comes to that. So thanks. Ricardo, any thoughts? Barry, any thoughts before we go?
Peace and chicken grease. That's my only thought.
Amen. I was going to mention that.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.